Hey guys, Cam here from Pocket-lint and foldable phones. They're becoming a thing for 2019 and it seems it's the trend, or among one of the trends that we're going for this year, along with buttonless, portless smartphones and cutouts in screens instead of notches. A few weeks ago, while we were in Barcelona for Mobile World Congress, we actually got our hands on a few of them, or at least got to see a few foldable phones in the flesh. There was Samsung's Galaxy Fold, there's the Huawei Mate X, there was TCL's interesting Prototype. We got a glimpse on the internet of Oppo's upcoming foldable phone, and also Nubia released what wasn't a foldable phone, but more of a wristwatch with a flexible screen over the top. So the interesting thing about foldable phones obviously is the display, because flexible displays have actually been in production for some time. For the past few years at CES and various other trade shows, we've seen companies show them off. So clearly the technology is there, but then there's a lot of other things to consider when you're building a smartphone that folds or bends. You've got to think about where the internal components go, how do they arrange them, how do they pack them in, and also what do they put on the front of the display? How do they coat it in a way that protects it and doesn't get easily ruined? Corning has been working on a flexible glass for some time, but it's not quite ready yet for mass production. So that's not an option. Instead, most companies are going for plastic because obviously that bends. So the issue with plastic, of course, is how do they make a plastic on top of the display that's durable enough and also one that's transparent enough and that won't ruin easily. So we took a look at the Nubia Alpha, and this isn't a foldable phone, as I've already mentioned. It's a wearable watch or a wearable phone with a flexible display on it, and the way they solved this problem was to build up tiny layers, up to 11 layers I think, of various transparent polymers. So the polymer is clear and it bends and flexes along with the display panel. And in between each of those layers they had to come up with a special form of glue. The reason they had to come up with their own special glue for these layers, again, is because they need it to be completely transparent, but also as a device flexes and bends and moves, if these layers aren't stuck down properly, they start to shift, and then you start to see issues like creasing and bubbles, and you really don't want that on a display. So that's one part of the technological development that they had to overcome, and this is the same on a lot of phones. The other challenge, of course, is deciding which way the phone is going to fold, and this is where Samsung and Huawei differ. Huawei's folds outwards, and so you have the hinge on the outside of the display and the screen goes over that. And so the obvious problem here is that with the screen being on the outside all the time and it going in and out of your pocket, that's going to cause some scuffing. And so we need to see, hopefully when we get a unit to review, whether this can withstand daily activity. Likewise with the Galaxy Fold folding inwards and being pretty much completely flat, that's going to cause a crease in the display. And so you then have this imperfection of having a line down your screen, and we've seen it in photos and videos, we've seen it in real life. That flexible screen, once it's been folded shut, does cause a slight crease that you can see from certain angles. And even Huawei's with the bit on the outside, once that's folded flat, again you can see a sort of a crease. But interestingly, the one that I'm personally most interested in is the TCL Prototype. Now this was a small wallet-shaped foldable phone. They did create other devices and wearable prototypes as well that we got to see briefly. The one that seemed the closest to being a final product was the foldable, sort of passport-sized phone. And this snaps together using magnets. It doesn't completely fold shut, it sort of has this curve on the inside, and that's enabled by what they call a dragon hinge, and it's made up of various gears and bits and pieces inside that allows them to create this shape that folds. But this hinge that they've developed also allows them to create wearable devices that fit around your wrist and various other shapes and form factors, even things that aren't particularly phones. So of course the big question is, will big foldable phones catch on? And as it stands, no. And I don't think it's going to be something that people buy lots of. Firstly, because it's very expensive. The Huawei Mate X and the Galaxy Fold are about £2,000 each. And with them both being early iterations of a software that hasn't really developed yet, it's going to take some brave early adopters to want to jump on board. And then there's also the issue of software and optimization. They may have made their own user interfaces that suit the screen that folds out and closes, perfectly, but then app developers will definitely not have done that yet, at least not most of them. So then you have apps that look weird when they're on a full screen or when they're on the long screen. So there's a lot to work out and a lot to develop yet. Now, in order for foldable phones to become a thing, they need to be mass produced, and they need to be cheap enough for people to want to buy them. And that's a good few years away yet. So obviously the price of being an early adopter in any technology is that you have to pay a lot more for something that isn't properly developed yet. So we'll see. It might just take Apple getting in on the game for people to realize that this might be a thing, but for now, I'm more hedging on the side of it being a gimmick rather than being a genuine next step evolution in smartphones. Let me know what you think in the comments down below or shout at me on Twitter. I'm at Cam Bunton. And if you want to, you can hit that subscribe button and hit that thumbs up. And I will see you again in the next one. Bye for now.